I have a weird relationship with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids because, on the one hand, I remember loving this film growing up, but on the other hand, I couldn't actually remember anything about it. Obviously, I could remember the basic premise, but I couldn't remember anything specific. And with the film being on Disney Plus, I figured this was as good a time as any to give it another watch and see what I thought of it now. And I have to say it's pretty good. There is one thing that I would have liked to have seen differently, but I can also understand the decisions that were made based on what I'm assuming are budgets and availability. And I'll discuss what I mean by that in a moment. But the film was released originally in 1989. It's a little bit older than I thought. I would have watched it mid 90s, I think. It's directed by Joe Johnston, written by Stuart Gordon, Brian Yuzna, and Ed Neha, and it stars Rick Moranis as brilliant Wayne. Wayne Szalinski, really liked his character. The concept is pretty simple. We have this very enthusiastic scientist who is trying to make this device to make things shrink. Brilliant concept. And I won't say exactly what happens or how it leads to this point, but he is away from the device, and the device ends up shrinking his daughter and son, and also two children from the neighbouring house as well. And I say the device ends up shrinking because it wasn't something that anybody did intentionally, but because they've been shrunk down to size, nobody can see them. And people are making missing children reports, and the children are trying to, get back to the house safely. They're in the garden for pretty much all of the film, and this is both a praise and something that I wish was done differently. So the set designs are incredible. They do have this really, I mean, for the 1989, we do have this pretty realistic sense of them being among the grass and the weeds, and we have ants and things at giant size, and the props they're interacting with are absolutely brilliant. But I feel like it would have been more interesting if it had been done inside of the home, and they interacted with what would look like giant versions of, I don't know, TV remotes and furniture and, the carpet fibers, but that would have taken a bigger budget. They would have had to have created a lot more props, much more elaborate set designs, whereas with the outdoors, because one giant blade of grass looks pretty similar to the next giant blade of grass, I feel like they probably could have used the set, did tiny tweaks to it here and there, and you still get the sense of this colossal garden that they're in. But just personally, I think it would have been more interesting if they'd been inside, but as I said, I can see why that would have been a bit more complicated. But I quite liked it. It's good fun. It's a fun story. It's not funny as such, but it's definitely interesting. Because I couldn't remember it in any detail, I couldn't remember how it resolved itself or how the narrative concluded, and I feel like the progression of the narrative had a really good pace to it, even though a lot of it is in this grass, in this garden. It doesn't feel too repetitive. They have little problems popping up here and there, so I think it worked quite well. I will go and watch Honey, I Blew Up the Kids, which again, I did watch it. And again, I'm aware of the basic premise, but I don't really remember too much about it, so maybe that'll be the next one that I watch. But definitely Honey, I Shrunk the Kids maybe isn't going to be my next new favourite film, but I did enjoy it well enough. It's actually one of those films that I'd quite like to see being remade. It's not often I like these kind of classic films being remade, especially with Disney. But this one would be quite interesting. Either way, definitely one that I recommend.